Hey guys, in this video we're comparing the two gimbals that I mainly use for custom builds and for my own personal use. We're comparing the T-2D brushless gimbal and the Feiyu G3 brushless gimbal. Right off the bat, there's a few differences that I wanted to talk about, and it's the location, the motor, and the motors, tilt control, things like that. These are both the most stable gimbals on the market today for your money, okay? Without going to get a Zen Moose or another DJI product that's 3 times more expensive. These are great for the money. Let's start with the Taro. The Taro's it's about $150 now. It's come down a lot in price, and it's a great gimbal. These vibration dampeners here, they do a great job at getting rid of all the jello, and as long as it's mounted correctly on the right arms to the right frame, and your props are well balanced, you're not going to get any vibrations or jello from this gimbal. It's I've used it. I've put this thing through its paces, as you guys could tell by other videos on my channel. I've aggressively tested this gimbal, and it's always come through and delivered a real still video. Now, the G3. Feiyu has been making a lot of stuff for the RC and FPV guys for a while now. They have the FY31 AP. They started out with the 21 AP autopilot system with return to home. They make the 31 AP. Now they make the 41 AP. And they also make stabilization systems. And this is their, I think, their second brushless gimbal. And right off the bat, it's for the GoPro Hero 3. It's got bigger motors on it. It does have a higher torque. They're bigger diameter motors with more poles. And I noticed this gimbal doesn't wander as much, especially in the roll axis. It doesn't wander as much when it's on, and it balances really well. Sometimes the Taro doesn't have the balance right off the bat. I might have to start it up again, and sometimes the roll wanders on it. We're going to get into the programming in another video, and I'll show you guys both the operating systems to make these gimbals work. But let's go back to the G3 here. This is a great gimbal for, for any filming, just like the Taro is. It has the same vibration dampening here, and they work really well. It's as long as it's mounted correctly, you have good balanced props. This video is ultra smooth, no jello. Anything like that. One thing that I like about the Feiyu gimbal over the Taro is the access to the side of the gimbal, or to the side of the GoPro, I should say. With the motors on the left side, you can easily get to the jacks, the HDMI or the mini USB jack, and not only that, but you can get to the multi-port jack on the back. This is great for when you're getting one of those micro transmitters, or something that plugs into the back of the GoPro. And now a battery pack won't work because it's just too wide, and with the sensor here, it's not going to fit flush up against it. But a lot of other things, especially the control cable, it'll fit back here, and you don't have to worry about the gyro getting in the way or anything. And that's a great feature on the Feiyu G3 that I really like about it. This gimbal is about $10 more, maybe $20, depending where you go. Hobby Wireless has these gimbals, and I'm growing to love it just as well. Now the tilt system with both these gimbals is a little bit different. I use the right slider for both, and just as a comparison, I'm using it on a 9C here with Dragon Link, and this is actually mounted on a Matrix, which uses this 8FG with the Dragon Link. And a real quick comparison with the tilt is the Taro works in the way that if I move the slider down, it's going to continue to rotate down until I stop the slider. And when I recenter the slider, the camera will stop in that new position. And that would be like a open loop system. Now with the G3, if I move the slider down, let's say I move it down 20 degrees, on the radio. The slider has about a 70 or 80 degree range on it. If I move the slider 20 degrees, the camera will move about 30% of its range and stop. the slider can stay in that position. You don't have to move the slider on the radio back to center. And I'm going to power them both up and show you guys that. As far as stability goes, they're both really close. The G3's probably got a newer, more updated controller in it, and also it doesn't wander so much in the roll axis, and I really like it. I think it's going to be my new choice. The Taro's an older model, and it's been great. I've abused it. One thing I haven't done really with the G3 is abused it too much in high wind situations or anything like that. In the wind I have flown in, it's been a great gimbal. It's never given me any problems, and I love the accessibility here to the GoPro. So the mounting and ease of construction, I got to give it to the G3. The G3 is a lot easier to put together. It only took me about 20 minutes, where if you guys have seen my Taro construction video, the Taro takes about 45 minutes to an hour to assemble. It's got a lot more parts that have to be arranged a certain way, and some people are getting it, partially assembled. Most of the time it's not assembled at all out of the box. The G3 is almost ready to go. The motors are already installed, put on the arms. The sensor, I think, is installed on most of them. You just have to put the carriage onto the motor shaft, and then the motor arm to the plate, put the dampeners in, and then get it mounted to the top plate. The G3 took about half the time the Taro did to assemble, which makes it nice. Power consumption, we're going to go with the Taro on that, because the G3 does have bigger motors. It's going to use more power, but they do have higher torque. I don't think it's going to be a measurable difference. Maybe, let's say an hour with an 800 milliamp battery versus 50 minutes. I don't think it's going to be that measurable, especially if you're using your FPV transmitter. Your FPV transmitter is going to be consuming a lot more power than your gimbal will, depending on how active you are with the gimbal and the controller at the time. The gains out of the box, guys, both of these gimbals out of the box are pretty much good to go. You might have to play with the gains a little bit on the Taro, but with the G3 I had absolutely no issues with the gains on these. We're going to get them powered up now, and then we're going to go through the open loop system on the tilt control for the Taro, and the closed loop system on the tilt control on the G3. Remember, the open loop, I move the slider down and it's going to rotate. The further down I move the slider, the faster it rotates until I bring the slider back to center on the radio. When I bring it back to center, the gimbal stops, and that's my new position. On the closed loop system, I slide the slider down, and where I slide it down to depends on where the camera lands, or where its stop position is. So I bring the slider back to center, and the camera moves back up to center. And up is the same deal. So that's a closed loop system, guys, and that's the difference between those tilt systems. If you're used to one, it might take you a minute to get used to the other. I honestly prefer the G3. That way you don't have to go back to center with the slider, and so once you find your angle, then you have it, and you don't have to search to stop the rotation, so you don't end up going all the way backwards and maxing out the gimbal in the tilt setting. So we're going to get them powered up, and then we'll look at the tilt control on each one. Okay guys, so here we have both the gimbals powered up, and I'm just going to go through and show you guys the difference with the tilt control and the open and closed loop system. So first let's go to the Taro, and you can see the gimbal tilt. I'm going to move my slider down, and it's going to tilt until I move it back up, and when you hear that beep, then there you go, and that's the new position. We're going to move it up, the same deal, and until I find that beep, it's going to keep rotating. The tilt, and we're going to go through the axes here, it goes back about 20 degrees, and let's see how far up it goes. It's going to go almost straight up, so figure 90 degrees up, which is a cool feature. The farther I move the slider, the faster it's going to rotate, but I have to find center with that beep. Now let's look at the G3, and here I have my 8FG. I'm going to use the same slider, the right slider, and I'm going to move it down, and it actually hit the center point just because that's the way it was set, the channel was set up. You can use the trim on the channel to adjust the center position. If I move it down further, and it goes to a new position, and down further, it goes to a new position. So right now I'm looking about straight down. You can, by setting the endpoints to 120 to 120, you can increase the angle or decrease the angle of tilt on the gimbal. And you can do that actually with both. So we're going to go back up. And if I go back up to the beep, then I'm pretty much back up to the center. If I go up a little bit more, and then I just leave the switch where it is, and it ends where the switch is. So if I go all the way up, now this is all the way up with this gimbal. So what I'd recommend doing is to get the vertical to look up higher, is just change the endpoints in the radio to 120 versus 100 for that channel. Or you can put it on a VR knob and see if you can get a different result. So there it is. That's the difference between closed and open loop systems, guys. These gimbals are both great gimbals. They work awful well. Both of them work really well. Neither one of them have a jello problem unless one of the mounting balls comes out like this one here, which I got to put back in. And it's easy to see the jello once they get going. But the new Feiyu G3 is a great gimbal. It comes really nice in a metal tin instead of a little black box like the Taro comes in, and it's almost assembled 100%. Another thing I like about this, and it's really hard to overlook it, is the back of the gimbal here gives you full accessibility to your GoPro. The side controls and also the back. I think it's a 32 pin plug. On the Taro, on the other hand, it doesn't give you that accessibility, but right off the bat I get more travel on the Taro, and you know, it's a little it's a little older of a gimbal, but I'll tell you what, they've both given me great results. So you know, be sure to check them out, guys. The Feiyu G3, and this G3 is about $10 more. I think it's about $169, and the Taro's $150. So that's the open loop system there and the closed loop system there. If you guys have any questions about these gimbals, these keys are about the same. You can flip this one over and use a rubber band as well, just like I did here on the Taro. One of my subscribers gave me that great tip, and I appreciate it. Just remember, the G3 does have more torque. It's going to consume a little more power, and hopefully they come out for just the back plates. If they're smart, they'll come out with just the back plate, so we can put the 3 Plus on there. And because these are both sized for the Hero 3, I have 2 silvers in there now, and that's really about it. Next is coming up with the software. They're both about the same in easeability, but as far as being ready out of the box, I think the G3 is actually a little bit better as far as being ready to go out of the box, and you don't have to do any messing around with the gains, anything like that. So these are the gimbals, guys. The newest brushless gimbals that I use and that I recommend is the Taro and the Feiyu G3. If you guys have any questions, please comment below, and I'll get right back to you. Thanks for watching.